Today is the 22nd day of the Hebrew month of Shvat. It is the yard site of the Previous Rebbe, but also the yard site of may his merit protect us, and may the merit of the righteous be recalled for a blessing. And also the yard site of the Lubavitcher Rebbe's wife. Her name was Chiya Muska. She was the second daughter of Yosef, Yitzchak, the previous Rebbe. It's a day that really changed, obviously, the life of the Rebbe, and because of that, the life of a good segment of the Jewish population at large. The Rebbe observed Shloshim, the 30-day commemorance that a person observes when his spouse passes. And then, whereas maybe the average person would have kind of become a little more recluse, a little more personal, a little less of a public figure, the Rebbe started on, she passed away in Shvat. Shvat, the calendar goes Shvat, then Adar, and then Nisan. By base Nisan, the second day of Nisan, which is right at the beginning of the month, the Rebbe said the famous Sikha of that same year, which was, I guess, maybe 10 days, I don't know, you can do the math, but maybe 12 days, I don't know exactly, after Shloshim was over, about Chiya Melech, the concept of long live the king, which they would say to King David, the people who were on his side, as opposed to the people who were the Sanhedrin and other people of the generation that weren't so fond of everything he was doing. And then from this, slowly, you see in the talks of the Rebbe, and even in the Chassidus the Chassidus that he did right after that point wasn't so much. Remember, he only is able to write Chassidus until Zach Adar of 1992. So that's 4 years later. The concept, the main theme, is the imminence of the messianic redemption, and this is something I always think, and this is my opinion, that this is something that came out of a great sense of love and connection to the previous Rebbe. That I think the Rebbe was trying to say, like, without my wife, the only thing left to do is just to merit the redemption, to get everyone focused on the redemption, because eventually from the redemption comes the resurrection of the dead. And I think more than anything, the Rebbe just really wanted to be with the Rebbetzin again. And this is, no one really talks about it because the Rebbe is a tzaddik and he has a vision of the world that no one else has. Every tzaddik has their own vision of the world that regular people can't see. So the Rebbe says, like in 1991, Erev Yom Kippur, the Rebbe said that Mashiach is coming like right now. And this Yom Kippur, which is the day before Yom Kippur, is going to be similar to the Yom Kippur, the second inauguration of the temple, because they were inaugurating the temple during that time. They didn't fast. And I said, also we probably won't have to fast. And this base madrash, the 770, will go up and be in Yerushalayim, and also all the base madrashim, everything. He saw the redemption by 1991. He saw it as a foregone conclusion, something that was happening instantly and immediately. And this is how he spoke. And this is a message that still resonates with a great deal of strength amongst his adherents, and even amongst those who aren't his adherents, because again, he's privy to a certain kind of vision, prophetic vision, that the rest of us aren't. This is the Rebbetzin. We learn a lot of interesting things. She was in a position to be one of the most notable figures in the Jewish world, female figures, and yet in reality, she was a very, very private person. And we do have some stories of her. There's one famous story that they always reprint. One time she was taking trips, and one time the regular road was closed for a detour. So she had to take she had it for construction or something. She had to take a detour. She took a detour and she saw like a big ruckus outside a house. And she went outside of her car and she asked what was going on. She found out a Jew was being evicted from her place of residence. So she asked, how much do you owe? And she wrote a check and she gave it to this woman. And later someone would come ask her, how did you know that was what you're supposed to do and that's what your husband wants you to do? So she explained that she came from the previous Rebbe's family, was connected to the altar of his family, considered himself the spiritual grandson of the Baal Shem Tov. And she said everything that happens in this universe is by divine providence. And the fact that my road happened to be closed and I happened to see this, I knew for a fact that it was my job to help this lady out. There's also probably the most famous story is regarding the book case, the book court case. There was at one point, the previous Rebbe had one grandson. At one point he felt that the books in Lubavitch were also partly his because he was the physical grandson. So they had a famous court case. They didn't want to go to a religious court. I think the grandson didn't want to go, so they ended up going to a secular court. And it's a big question if they're going to call the Rebbe in, but they didn't. But they did call his wife. And at one point, because she was also the daughter of the Rebbe, so she was also family of the previous Rebbe. So they asked her very profound question: who do these books belong to? Do they belong to your father, or do they belong to the Chassidim, which was the claim of the Chassidim at that point? So she said, the books and my father both belong to the Chassidim. And it was with this rationale that the judge decided that, yeah, I mean, if this is how, I mean, he was a secular judge, but if this is how it was being explained to him from the daughter of the previous Rebbe, who clearly these books belong to, that this is the order in Lubavitch, that not only do the books belong with the Rebbe himself, and keep in mind she was at the time married to the Rebbe, so anything she was saying about the previous Rebbe obviously affected how she felt about her husband. And she was saying that even my husband, in effect, he simply belongs to the Chassidim. He's like property of the Chassidim. He's here to service us. He's here to bless us. He's here to guide us, to lead us. He's a public employee of the Chassidim. So anything that's his is communal. And with this rationale, the books were in their entirety returned to a special library in Lubavitch, and then they're on display today. These famous books. The most famous one is probably a siddur that the Baal Shem Tov reportedly had used. But this is the day that Jewish women around this time of year. It just happened in the Shabbos that in Crown Heights they have the gathering of female emissaries of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and it's a day that you can really see that, I don't know, with all her potential and what she could have done. Literally, she could have been the head of anything. She could have started many things, but she was a very private person. And this to me speaks volumes about her character and about this concept that not every person is meant to be an outspoken person or a leader or something, and it's very important to try to tune into what your own specific role is while you're a soul entrapped in this particular body. A soul doesn't get dragged down from its lofty heights for no reason. We all have a job to do in this world. We have to somehow make the world a better place, better than what we found it, and we have to use our own abilities to do that. And with someone like the Rebbe, since she's a daughter of the previous Rebbe, she's connected to her soul and her whole life. She also has this vision of a prophet, and she knows exactly what she's to do. And I guess her main job was really to be the wife of the Rebbe, and this is what she did with obviously amazing effectiveness. And like even after 10 years passed and they didn't have any children, it wasn't even talk of giving a get or a bill of divorce. They stayed happily married until the end of her life. And the day that we hope that her merit should protect us, and that our daughters, our Jewish daughters, should be raised to come out a little bit like the Holy Rebbe Chaim Muska. Her name, there's one tzich I saw the Rebbe explains her name. He says Chiya means life, and Muska, he says Yiddish, I think, for the power of fragrance, the power of smell. And he says there that of all the senses that we have, smell is the most lofty. Smell is something that it's related more closely to the soul, whereas touch is related more to the body, and even sight can stimulate like the heart. If you see something you really like, you get excited about, your heart can start racing. And hearing is more of an intellectual delight. You can hear words of Torah, and tasting is also more for the body generally. But smell, it doesn't really give enjoyment so much to the body, but the Rebbe points out that it's the most spiritual of all your senses. So it's the life of this power of smell. She was the second of 3 daughters that the previous Rebbe had, and that's it. Her yahrzeit is today, Chaf Bei Shvat, the 22nd day of Shvat, just 12 days after on the calendar her father's yahrzeit, which is Yud Shvat. And the Rebbe always pointed out that Shvat is the 11th month, and Chaf Beis 22 is 2 times the 11th, and he has a whole talk many times about the power of 10 being the 10 spheres and really the perfection in, let's say, nature, and 11 being like a kesser, being like a crown, which is the aspect of Tanug and Ratzon, pleasure and will, and how 11 is connected even on a higher level with unity than 10. And in the footnote of the Sikha it says, of course, the Rebbe is born on the 11th of Nisan, and 11 times 2 is 21. So may her merit protect us, and may we merit to raise daughters that turn out at least with a semblance. We don't hope that they turn out to be like the Rebbetzin, because we ask Hashem for a lot, but that would be a little bit of a ludicrous request. But at least they have a semblance of the Rebbetzin in terms of her modesty and in her character traits and in her patience and her kindness and her warmth. There's not one story where someone knocked on the Rebbe's house and the Rebbetzin wasn't nice to them. She'd always invite people in. She's always very nice and sweet and calm and understanding and loving and patient. She was really, I heard in 770, I was in 770 the Shabbos, she was like the mother of the Chassidim, of Dor Shvi, or the 7th generation, which the Rebbe holds to be the last generation. So that's what it is. Thank you so much, and God bless.